right, by now you should be super clear on the 3 required phases for an effective meeting. 1, focus. 2, do the work. 3, wrap it up. Now you may be thinking that this doesn't look like anything you've ever seen in a meeting invite, and that's because it's not. The meeting structure includes everything that the leader has planned for that meeting. But these plans aren't usually shared in detail with everyone else. As a meeting participant, what you'll see is typically called the meeting agenda. The agenda isn't the whole plan. It's a simplified outline designed to be shared with the group. So the agenda's job is to give everyone the information they need to prepare for the meeting, and then help them understand what's going on during the meeting. To do its job, you have to send the agenda out in advance. In fact, research has shown that an agenda presented during the meeting is pretty much pointless. It's just another slide at that point because it didn't help anyone prepare and it didn't create any expectations up front about how the meeting would work. So before we go any farther, we need to get very clear on this difference between the meeting agenda and the underlying structure. Confusion about what an agenda is and how to make one is one of the main reasons so many meetings are so terrible. So here's where that confusion comes in. Most of us learn how to meet by going to meetings. And there we see leaders send out an agenda, which often looks like a list of topics the group should discuss. So when it's our turn to lead our first meetings and we sit down to write our agendas, we say to ourselves, okay, I need an agenda. So what's an agenda? Well, it's a list of topics to discuss. So, okay, what are the topics we need to discuss in our meeting? Well, there are the results from the bake sale and the parent survey, and we've got the harvest party coming up, and we've got to find some candidates for the next election, and so on. We end up creating what facilitators call a laundry list agenda, a big old list of topics that we may or may not even get through during the meeting. So that's a terrible way to create an agenda. Just like a total waste of time. You are not going to do that ever again. Instead, you're going to clarify your meeting's purpose and desired outcomes and plan a strong meeting structure that will help your group think together and get those outcomes. And then you're going to write the agenda based on that structure, which you'll share with the group in advance. Let's take a look at some examples. Say we're planning a team Cadence meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to keep the group in sync and make sure there's nothing slowing folks down. The desired outcomes are up-to-date information about what everyone is doing, solutions for any problems that have come up, and a plan for the week ahead. Oh, and you want to have a nice time together too. So, given that, here's how we can build an agenda using the 3 basic phases. And here's another agenda that uses the basic phases and where the team uses the real-time agenda technique for the do the work phase. Now, the marketing team at my company uses this exact agenda for their weekly meeting. The agendas here are extremely simple. In fact, meetings like this often don't need an agenda per se, but they do need a structure. If your team always uses the real-time agenda technique and everyone knows what to expect in advance, you don't have to send out an agenda for that. Another team Cadence meeting, the 10-minute morning stand-up meeting, that gives you another great example of a time where an agenda is unnecessary. For those meetings, the whole team gathers and each person quickly answers 3 questions about their day. What they did yesterday, what they have planned today, and places where they need help. There's no agenda for these meetings, but there is a structure. Those examples were for really simple meetings. So what about more complex meetings? Well, for those, you do need an agenda, and you'll want to build on a more detailed meeting framework. The more advanced meeting frameworks all define ways to structure the meeting that help the group think together. I've mentioned this idea a few times now, this thinking together idea. Here's what that means. Now, as you know, everyone thinks a bit differently. If you're meeting to solve a problem, for example, some people in the room will immediately start brainstorming solutions. And others will want to dig into the root cause and understand more about why the problem happened. And some others may not even agree that there's a problem to be solved. There are a lot of ways to think about a problem. A good meeting framework gets everyone in the meeting doing the same kind of thinking at the same time. Sticking with our example of a problem-solving meeting, those work best when everyone first discusses and agrees that they understand what the problem is, and then they talk about what a solution needs to accomplish. Then they come up with possible solutions, and then they pick one and define who does what. Now, walking through that process together, thinking together as a group, is much faster and gets far better results than just throwing a bunch of folks into a room. Now, let's look at the Meeting Canoe. It's one example framework designed to support more complex conversations. The Meeting Canoe was defined by Emily and Dick Axelrod in their book, Let's Stop Meeting Like This. Now, canoe is not an acronym. The name literally describes the shape of a successful meeting and how designing meetings that follow this shape will propel a team forward towards a common goal. As if they were all rowing the same canoe. The canoe has its own descriptions of the phases in a meeting. Emily and Dick really understand the importance of getting people engaged with each other before diving into the work. So the canoe model dedicates 2 full oars, welcome and connect, to becoming present. The next 3 seats break the do the work section into explicit discover, elicit, and decide steps. In the discover step, the group discusses the current situation to make sure they all have the same understanding. Then they elicit ideas about what they'd like to see happen, after which they decide on specifics. The last seat on the Meeting Canoe is reserved for the rep. Now you can see how the 6 sections of the Meeting Canoe line up with the 3 basic meeting phases. At Lucid Meetings, we have a gallery full of example meeting templates, all of which include a draft agenda and a detailed structured guide for the meeting leader. Now here's how one of our most popular meeting designs, the Essential Project Kickoff, maps to the Meeting Canoe. And, that leads me to my final tip about creating a great agenda. Start with a great example. When you know what type of meeting you need, because you've defined the purpose and the desired outcomes, then you can usually find example structures specific to that kind of meeting. Now, the Lucid Template Gallery includes over 40 detailed templates, and they're all free downloads, and a quick search for, how to run a project status meeting or how to run a one-on-one or, whatever it is, that's going to turn up dozens of additional examples. One thing is for sure, none of these examples will show a big old list of random topics. Never do that again. Okay, let's recap. The agenda is the version of the meeting plan that gets shared with everyone. The agenda must be sent in advance to do its job, which is to help people prepare and tell them what to expect. To create an agenda, start by defining the meeting's purpose and desired outcomes. Then, find a structure that helps the group get to those outcomes. For more complicated meetings, use a more robust meeting structure framework, like the Meeting Canoe. Alternatively, grab an example template from the Lucid Meetings Gallery.